we need to do our Big 12 pod with Texas Tech, TCU, Oklahoma State, and Baylor, and then John McClain just around the corner. We'll start with Tech. Had a monstrous, needed, just a lift, just an experience winning, blew out North Texas, 66-21. Texas Tech is now hosting unbeaten Arizona State, who comes back in the state of Texas for back-to-back weeks.
Yeah, I think that was a really good win for Texas Tech. You got Taj Brooks back, so that was important. You got Micah Hudson involved just to shut up people, and Baron Morton played a really solid game, so I think you're ecstatic about what you saw as far as a bounce back, and this ought to be a really tough contest because Arizona State's apparently a pretty good team. They've got some good players and some good coaching and some good vibes going on right now in Tempe. So I still go with Tech, especially after what we saw last week. But this ought to be a hell of a game. And I think if you go and win this one, then everything's right with the world once again in the LBK, as opposed to a couple of weeks ago when it was looking like, oh, my God, is Joey McGuire going to be on the hot seat in a couple of weeks? So they needed to get that bounce back, and this ought to be a great matchup.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, we'll see in the Big 12 season if they've corrected a lot of those problems. And that, again, that starts this week all over the place, or maybe for them next week. They might have the bye this week. But there's still going to be probably a reckoning when it comes to that coaching staff, I think, because of what happened early in the season, whether it's some, minor changes or major ones. Not at the top, but at the coordinator and maybe – quarterback coach, linebacker coach type positions.
Who did you say had the bye?
Does Tech have the bye with?
No, they don't
play
have a bye.
Arizona State.
Arizona State. Okay, yeah. So that starts this week. You got to go play Arizona State, who's neat. Arrow's played up.
Arizona State's playing in Lubbock.
Yeah.
So they're going back to back in the state of Texas.
Didn't matter to Abilene Christian that they were playing in Lubbock.
No.
That's something that they have to be wary of. And Taj Brooks played in that game.
Yep. So. And he had over 100 yards in his return after being injured. Also, we've discussed Baylor at Colorado quite a bit. We can do that. Craig wrote something today in Sikkim365.com, the premium section. Are the Bears ready for prime time? And we all have, we do predictions every week in the game. I do see that there's a pretty nice chunk of people who are doing predictions who think Baylor's going to win. If they can weather the first quarter, then there's a chance if they're not overwhelmed early, because that's what Colorado tries to do, especially when they're at home.
Well, it was a really good win for them against Air Force, not because Air Force is some great team. They're not, but because that got rid of some demons from losing to a much more seasoned, veteran-laden Air Force team a couple years prior in a miserable Armed Forces Bowl loss. So that was exercising some demons, but also is flexing their muscle a little bit. Sawyer Robertson starting over Taquan Finn, who was injured, made a world of difference for the offense, at least in this game. I don't know if that means it's going to be that way moving forward, but I do think the offense looked different in a good way, and I think that will remain the case, and I think they can go win this game. I think it's a matter of if you just don't hyperventilate under the lights, which they've been prone to do. And I think at this point, if you just go play your ball game and you don't get caught up in all that, then based on what we've seen, they're good enough to go up to Boulder and get a win. Whether they do or not, I have no idea, but I do think they're good enough to go and do that. And you go and do that, and all of a sudden you're 3-1, and you're feeling damn good about the start of this season in the first month. Given that you could very well have been 2-2 or 1-3. And so I think, this is an important game, but they can't make it too important. They just got to go play a football game on Saturday night. But I like where they are with Sawyer Robertson. That looked a lot better than what we'd seen the previous 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And Bryson Washington at running back as well. That defense is also, it seems legit. We'll see this weekend when they actually get tested in the passing game, but so far so good on the defense.
If they can withstand, like you said, Smokey, the big punches from the superstars, that's kind of Colorado's deal. Is they're kind of the inverse of Baylor. They have several superstars, but they don't have the Army Ants.
Yep.
I think Baylor might have a team full of Army Ants, but they do need to find some superstars. Like they might have that. That's where Colorado's deficient.
You got to earn that. You got to earn that.
They're really good at. Well, it's very Cowboys, where and some of their worst years they have these stud players, but then the middle of it isn't very good. They've got to get that. But I think that if they can withstand the Travis Hunters and Jimmy Horns and LeJontay Westers and Will Shepard, that kind of onslaught that Shadur Sanders is going to throw at them, they're not going to run the ball. I mean, Colorado's not even going to try to run the ball, really. So if you can withstand that and get them in off the field, you can win this game.
I sent my prediction into, who was it, Levi, and there's two stats. When they went back-to-back against Tech and Oklahoma in 2022, which was the last time that really they were riding any kind of a wave that was up, an upward-type wave, they ran for 200-plus yards in both wins, and they won the turnover ratio 8-2. That's how you win games on the road. That's how you win games in general. I don't know if that's going to work, but if they can get any of that little magic, then they have a chance to do something in Boulder. Otherwise, there's a chance they get overwhelmed and then playing catch-up the whole game like they did in Utah, but with a different offense. All right, Oklahoma State. This is the game, the best game of the week. There might be others, but Oklahoma State, number 14, hosting Utah, 12th-ranked Utah, 10th in one poll, 12th in another. It's a 3 o'clock Central start on Fox. It's a big game on Fox along with the other ones they have. But this game here, I love to sit down and just be able to watch it.
Alan Bowman had a really nice game last week. I think they are still very much a work in progress as far as the running game goes, which I'm fascinated to see this weekend because of Utah's defense. It's not going to make it any easier. So does the running game get going a little bit? But I think Deshaun Stribling's been terrific for Oklahoma State at receiver, and they've got some athletic dudes that are going to give Utah problems, and vice versa. I feel like this is kind of two teams. They're not like stylistically the same, but they both have ancient head coaches at this point who have had their hands all over these programs for years and years now. They're about as sturdy of a programs as you're going to find in the Big 12, the two of them. And I do just find some commonalities between them in terms of being a really good team that doesn't necessarily always get that next level of attention. So whoever wins this game will get that, at least in the temporary, because they're going to be right there in the conversation for favorites in the Big 12 moving forward, along with probably a K-State. But this is a big game. It's going to be a big 1-0 conference start. And, I'm curious to see how Oklahoma State runs the football, and then curious how healthy Cam Rising is. And depending on that, what does this Oklahoma State defense that's also had some issues at times, how do they, defend what Kyle Whittingham and company are going to throw at them, and what does that look like? But this game being in Stillwater definitely is a couple extra points in their favor as far as I'm concerned, no matter where Utah's played previously.
All right. Paul, last second on Utah, Oklahoma State before we go to the last game.
It's gonna be a slobber knocker. I mean, they're gonna be physical with each other. It's gonna be close, but again, I'm curious to see Oklahoma State shore up on defense a little bit. Utah's not exactly a team full of world beaters on offense, but Cam Rising's good. If he learns to protect himself, he'll even be better. They've got Brent Keithy. They've got Money Parks. They've got some wide receivers, Dorian Singer, that can get out and make plays, and they've got a good running game. So they're going to be lethal no matter what. And if Oklahoma State continues to suffer on defense like they have, then this could be a game that gets popped from them at home. But still, it's such a ridiculously difficult place to play. To me, it's always like, I know the favorite and the swing is always like 3 points. You get 3 points just for being at home.
Yep.
A place like Stillwater, it's almost like they're going to score 10 points because they're in Stillwater. And that's a tough thing to overcome for a lot of teams.
All right, last game that includes the pod of the TCU, Texas Tech, Baylor, at Oklahoma State.
This is the Big 12 South. We need to get our names right. It's the Big 12 South pod.
Okay. No, it is. And now TCU and SMU. TCU coming off a just horrendous meltdown at the end of the game to a great win for UCF and Gus Malzahn. And on the road, like 45 minutes away on the road on I-30 to Mockingbird Lane to play SMU in what has become kind of a little heated rivalry between these two.
Yeah, you're talking about the distance from us, not from Orlando, Florida, obviously, for the travel. That's the distance for us to get to Mockingbird Lane, right? But
for TCU to get to Mockingbird.
Oh, for TCU. I was thinking, why don't I have UCF in my head for some reason?
I don't know.
I guess, yeah.
TCU has UCF in their
That's
head.
why I started thinking about UCF for some reason. I don't know why. But yeah, TCU, you're right, has that small trip, quick trip up Mockingbird to the Hilltop. And I don't know, this game lost a little bit of its luster with SMU losing a couple of weeks ago and just the uncertainty at quarterback for them. But I do think these two teams play each other very tough each time they're out there. And SMU can give TCU a run for their money. But I think the thing with TCU is after losing to UCF, which is why they're on my brain, that I feel like is going to propel you in having a pretty good week of practice and being ready for a rivalry game. I think the Frogs will win this one and get back on track. But, man, for as good as Josh Hoover is, like, I don't know. Something's just a little – I don't know if it's Sonny Dykes that's a little off or what, but TCU just not quite operating at the full capacity you feel like they should these past couple of seasons. And this last game was just another kind of notch on the belt of question marks when it comes to what you've seen as a Frogs fan the last year or so. So this is a big game. They can't afford to lose this one for multiple reasons, but I do think they'll handle their business. I think they're a more talented team and a better team despite what we saw against the Knights.
All right, Paul. All right, we got it.
I think TCU rolls them. I do.
Oh, yeah, SMU. Yeah, there's some teams that had high expectations. Obviously, the excitement of the ACC, and then they blew that tire early. But
thank you, BYU.
A long way to go. Yeah.
BYU popped that tire. That's what happened.
A long way to go. There's teams that are right now you may think, are they good? That they'll get into a run where they win 4 out of 5 or 3 or 4 in a row, and the next thing you know, it looks different sometime at the end of October, or at least they sure hope it does. When we come back,